Do this if you are ambitious but lazy. If you are ambitious but lazy, understand this truth. Desire alone is not enough. It must be set on fire with action. You can dream big, but without motion, those dreams rot in the graveyard of excuses. Start small, act daily, and let discipline drag your laziness into purpose. Success does not come to those who wait. It comes to those who work while they wait. So rise, take the first step today, because even the laziest ambition dies without effort. 1. Replace motivation with discipline. Do it whether you feel like it or not. 2. Break your big goals into tiny daily actions you can't ignore. 3. Eliminate distractions ruthlessly. They are ambition killers in disguise. 4. Surround yourself with doers, not talkers. 5. Reward progress, not perfection. Momentum beats laziness every time. 1. The man who waits for motivation is the man who never moves. He may speak of greatness, he may dream of wealth, he may whisper his desires to the stars, but until he learns to act without waiting for the warmth of inspiration, he will remain a prisoner of procrastination. You must understand with every fiber of your being that success does not come dressed in comfort. It does not walk hand in hand with feelings. It does not care whether you are tired, bored, uninspired, or disheartened. Success bows to discipline and discipline alone. The great men and women who have built empires, discovered cures, written masterpieces, and revolutionized industries did not do so by sitting around, waiting to feel ready. They did not wake each morning, stretch their arms, and wait for the clouds to part, and some magical wave of motivation to carry them toward action. No, they acted, despite the mood, despite the weather, despite the fear. They acted because they knew that action breeds clarity, action builds momentum, and action transforms dreams into destiny. The lazy man, often intelligent and full of potential, wastes away not because he lacks ambition, but because he depends too heavily on fleeting feelings. He may say, "I'll begin when I feel ready. I'll work when I'm inspired. I'll move when the time is right." But the time is never right for him. The sun never shines bright enough. The stars never align. The energy never comes, so he delays. Days pass, then weeks, then years, and one day he looks around and wonders where his life has gone. If you are ambitious but lazy, this is the cure: discipline. Not motivation, not excitement, not passion, discipline. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to go. Discipline is the muscle you must build, and you build it like you build all muscles, by using it daily even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Discipline means doing what you promised yourself you would do, long after the mood you made the promise in has faded. Discipline means rising at the hour you said you would, even when your bed feels like paradise. It means showing up to your work, your craft, your mission, when your mind screams for rest and your heart whispers excuses. It means writing the words, making the calls, hitting the gym, studying the material, even when every cell in your body begs you to quit. Because that is where transformation begins. Let me tell you a truth very few will admit. Motivation is a liar. It comes and goes like the wind. One moment it fills your sails, the next it abandons you in the middle of the sea. But discipline is the engine. You don't need wind when you've got an engine. You don't need hype or cheerleaders or sunshine or applause when you've got discipline. You just need to decide and then follow through. Most people do not suffer from a lack of dreams. They suffer from a lack of follow-through. They make goals on paper but never bring them to life. Why? Because the moment the high wears off, they sit still. The moment the excitement fades, they stop. But the disciplined man keeps going. He understands that feelings are not facts. He knows that consistency is greater than intensity. He would rather work for 15 minutes every day than work for 2 hours once a week. He would rather make one move today than 1,000 moves someday. He understands that action compounds. One page becomes a book. One workout becomes a transformation. One sale becomes a business. One video becomes a brand. But none of this happens until you stop waiting to feel like it and start committing to do it. Understand this. Discipline is not punishment. It is freedom. It is the freedom to become the person you were meant to be. It is the freedom to create a life on your terms. It is the freedom to look back and know, I gave it everything I had. While others were waiting to be inspired, you were building. While they were complaining, you were creating. While they were hesitating, you were taking steps, and those steps, small, consistent, disciplined, carried you further than they could ever imagine. If you want to outgrow your laziness, then do not fight it with motivation. Fight it with structure. Make your decisions once and live by them daily. If you say you'll wake at 6 a.m., then you wake at 6 a.m. no matter what. If you say you'll write for 1 hour, you write for 1 hour, even if every sentence feels like dragging a boulder uphill. That is the price you pay to conquer yourself. That is the price of greatness. Build routines, build systems, automate your progress, take the emotion out of it. It doesn't matter if you're in the mood to do your work. Do it anyway. Why? Because every time you act despite how you feel, you teach yourself that you are in charge. You build inner strength. You forge character. You become dependable not just to others, but to yourself. And that's the kind of person who wins in life. Not the person with the most talent, not the one with the biggest dreams, but the one who shows up no matter what. The one who honors their word, especially to themselves. When you live like this, something amazing happens. You start to build trust with yourself, and that trust becomes confidence, and that confidence becomes energy, and that energy becomes power. Suddenly, laziness starts to fade. Not because it disappears entirely, but because it no longer controls you. You feel it, you hear it, but you don't obey it. You act anyway, and in time, your actions shape a new identity. You become someone who does the hard things. Someone who earns what others only wish for, someone who walks with purpose. So if you are ambitious but lazy, the answer is simple, but not easy. Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for some magical surge of energy. Build discipline. Build it day by day, brick by brick, moment by moment. Wake up and work. Show up and push forward. Honor your plan. Trust the process, and remember, you don't need to feel ready. You just need to begin. Because the dream you chase is not reserved for the motivated. It's reserved for the disciplined, too. Every mountain you wish to climb, every dream you wish to build, every empire you see in your mind starts not with a leap, but with a single intentional step. And if you truly wish to turn ambition into achievement, then you must master the art of turning your grand, overwhelming vision into small, daily actions so simple, so obvious that you can no longer ignore them, because the truth is, big goals don't crush people. The weight of vague plans does. The man who says he will build a business, write a book, transform his body, or earn a fortune is not defeated by the size of the goal, but by his failure to break it into pieces. And what often appears as laziness is nothing more than confusion in disguise, a paralysis caused by not knowing where to begin. For the mind, when staring at a mountain, does not know where to step first, but when you bring the mountain down to the side of a pebble, suddenly the first step becomes obvious, and once the first is taken, the second follows, then the third, and momentum takes over, and that's where transformation begins. Not in massive, sudden actions, but in the power of repeated small efforts. And the tragedy is that most people live in a cycle of starting and stopping, driven by emotion and crushed by inconsistency, because they set goals so grand and plans so vague that their daily life never aligns with their dreams, and so they drift, always aiming but never acting, always hoping but never building, and the solution is not to aim smaller, but to act smaller. Yes, smaller, because tiny actions compound into massive results when done daily and deliberately, and when your goal feels too big, it's not a sign to quit. It's a signal to divide, because everything becomes possible when broken into parts, and the mind can't handle much more when the task is clear, specific, and bite-sized. So if your ambition is to become financially free, don't merely write "be rich." Ask instead, what does that look like today? Maybe it's learning for 20 minutes, saving $5, offering one service, making one sale, or reading 10 pages of a book that can sharpen your mind. If your dream is to write a novel, don't say "write a book." Say "write 200 words before noon." Because 200 words written daily become 600 a month, and within a year, you've got a manuscript. If your goal is to build your body, don't say "get fit." Say "do 20 push-ups every morning." And from there, the habit forms and the body adapts, and suddenly the idea of a full workout no longer feels so hard, because you've trained your mind to begin, and beginning is everything, because once you begin, you kill the fear, you silence the doubt, and you remind yourself that you are not powerless. And when you make your actions so small that they almost feel silly to skip, you beat the biggest enemy of all resistance, that quiet voice that tells you to delay, to wait, to start tomorrow, that whisper that says, "it's too much." And so you wait, and you drift, and the days pass, and nothing changes, and so the only way to silence that voice is to give it no room to speak, no space to argue, and the best way to do that is by shrinking your actions down to the point where saying no feels foolish. Because imagine if all you needed to do today to honor your dream was 5 minutes of focused effort. Could you skip it? Could you ignore it? And if you did, would you respect yourself? Probably not, and that discomfort builds pressure, and that pressure becomes fuel, and you act again, and eventually those tiny actions become rituals, and those rituals shape identity, and identity becomes destiny, because every big success story is a chain of small, consistent wins, stitched together by commitment and fueled by clarity. And if you study the lives of the great, you'll find a pattern. None of them waited for motivation. None of them acted in chaos. All of them built systems, and systems are nothing more than big goals broken down into small, trackable, repeatable tasks done with discipline and intention. And so if you truly want to outgrow your laziness and make progress that sticks, stop trying to change everything overnight. Stop trying to jump from 0 to 100 and start asking a better question. What is the smallest, most obvious thing I can do today that moves me forward? Then do it, and tomorrow ask again and do that too, and one day you'll look back and see that you've covered miles not in leaps, but in steady, deliberate footsteps, and those footsteps will form a path so solid, so unshakable, that you'll wonder why you ever waited for big moments, why you ever thought you needed giant bursts of energy to change your life, when all you ever needed was a little movement, repeated daily and made non-negotiable. And you'll learn to love the small things, the unglamorous steps, the boring details, because you'll see that's where mastery lives, that's where confidence grows, that's where freedom is born. Not in chaos, not in hype, but in control, in systems, in simplicity. And those small, daily, undeniable actions become a mirror that reflects your seriousness. Because if you can't do a little, you'll never do a lot. And if you can't conquer today, you won't conquer tomorrow. And if you're always waiting to feel ready for the big move, you'll be forever stuck in neutral, because the future isn't built on what you plan to do someday. It's built on what you do today, again and again. And once you build this mindset, you become unstoppable. Because life no longer overwhelms you, ambition no longer paralyzes you, and laziness no longer owns you, and the excuses that used to hold you back lose their power, not because you've eliminated them entirely, but because you've made progress too small to argue with, too simple to avoid, and consistent to fail, and that is the secret. Turn your life into a series of actions so small and so focused that they seem silly not to do, and then stack those actions, one on top of the other, day after day, month after month, until the person who once couldn't move becomes the one no obstacle can. Stop, and you'll discover that success was never about doing something once. It was about doing something always, and those tiny daily actions you once ignored now become the steps that carry you to everything you've ever dreamed of. 3. If you are serious about success, if you are truly hungry to rise, to create, to achieve, to turn the invisible into the visible, then there is one truth you must face with unwavering honesty. Distractions are not just harmless habits or innocent interruptions. They are ambition killers in disguise, thieves that rob you of time, focus, clarity, and momentum, and if you do not learn to eliminate them with ruthless precision, they will quietly, slowly, and silently destroy everything you've set out to build, because no matter how smart you are, how talented, how gifted, or how big your dreams may be, nothing can grow in a mind that is constantly pulled in 100 different directions, and this modern world, full of shiny objects, endless noise, and seductive time wasters, is designed to keep you busy but not productive, entertained but not empowered, stimulated but not focused. And that's the trap. The illusion that being active is the same as being effective, that checking notifications and replying to messages and scrolling through endless updates is somehow part of the process of chasing success, but it's not, and the longer you stay distracted, the more distant your goals become, until one day you realize that 1,000 little interruptions have added up to a life unlived, potential untapped, and dreams unfulfilled. So if you truly want to rise above average, you must wage war on distraction, not with hesitation, not with excuses, but with ruthless determination. You must learn to say no to anything that does not align with your purpose, to block, remove, silence, and eliminate the sources of noise that steal your time, because every second you give to distraction is a second stolen from your destiny, and this is where most people fall. They claim to want success, they dream of wealth, freedom, impact, and greatness, but they won't turn off the television, they won't put down the phone, they won't disconnect from the digital world long enough to connect with their goals. And so they stay stuck, distracted, overwhelmed, spinning in circles, living on autopilot, reacting instead of creating, and the saddest part is they don't even see it happening, because distraction is sneaky. It doesn't always look harmful. It often comes wrapped in entertainment, in urgency, in convenience. And if you're not careful, it will lull you into comfort and convince you that your time isn't worth protecting. But make no mistake, every goal you abandon, every dream you delay, every opportunity you miss can be traced back to the moments you gave in to distraction. So ask yourself right now, what's stealing your focus? What habits, what people, what apps, what patterns are pulling you away from your work, your growth, your mission? And once you find them, remove them, not gently, not slowly, but completely, because until you learn to guard your attention, you will never master your life. And I'll tell you something few have the courage to say. Success is not just about hard work, it's about deep work, focused work, uninterrupted work, the kind of work that demands your full presence, and you cannot give your full presence when your mind is split between 20 different tabs, 5 conversations, and an endless flood of notifications. You cannot produce excellence in a distracted state. You cannot build an empire when you're constantly stopping to check who liked your post or responded to your comment. And that's why the greats, those who truly achieve, who truly break through, they all learn to protect their focus like their life depends on it, because in a way it does. Your future depends on what you choose to give your attention to, and in a distracted world, focus is your superpower, the one thing that will separate you from the masses who are too addicted to instant gratification to do anything meaningful. So take back your mind, take back your hours, take back your life, turn off noise, schedule your time, create boundaries, and treat your focus as sacred, because when you give yourself fully to a task, when you work with intention and presence, something magical happens. Your work becomes deeper, your ideas become clearer, your confidence begins to grow, and you enter a state of flow where progress comes faster, breakthroughs come more often, and your goals stop feeling like distant dreams and start becoming real. And it all begins with elimination, with subtraction, with cutting out the nonsense that pretends to be important but in reality serves no purpose. And you must be brutal about it, because the world is not going to protect your focus. You must do it yourself, and that means you stop trying to be everywhere, stop trying to keep up with everyone, stop chasing every distraction disguised as opportunity, and instead choose a few things that matter deeply and give them everything you've got, because when your energy is spread thin, nothing grows, but when it is concentrated, miracles happen, and you already know this, you've felt it before. That moment when you were locked in, undistracted, fully alive in your work, and time seemed to disappear, and you created something amazing. That wasn't luck, that was focus, that was you unshackled from distraction, that was your potential unleashed, and you can live in that state more often if you're willing to pay the price, and the price is not enormous, but it is uncomfortable. It means letting go of habits that feel good in the moment but steal from your future. It means saying no to entertainment when you should be building. It means setting boundaries with people who interrupt your progress. And most of all, it means choosing growth over comfort day after day, and that choice isn't always fun, but it is always worth it, because every time you reclaim your time, you reclaim your power, and the more power you reclaim, the faster you move, the clearer you think, and the greater your results become. And soon, what once felt like struggle becomes second nature, because your environment shapes your behavior, and when your environment is distraction free, your mind sharpens, your habits improve, your output increases, and success is no longer a question of talent or luck. It becomes a matter of focus and consistency. So if you want to become someone others admire, someone who builds, who creates, who transforms their life from the inside out, you must become someone who values their attention above all, and you do that by becoming intentional, by treating each moment as a brick in the foundation of your legacy, and you cannot lay bricks while constantly looking up at the birds flying by. So stay grounded, stay disciplined, and most of all, stay committed to the work, because the dream is real, the potential is real, but it is only accessed when you remove the things standing in your way, and 9 times out of 10, the things standing in your way isn't a lack of time, talent, or opportunity. It's the silent thief called distraction, and you beat it not by fighting harder, but by removing the temptation entirely, so you can go deep, so you can stay focused, so you can do what you were born to do. And that is how the ambitious rise, not through more motivation, but through fewer distractions. 4. If you're ambitious but find yourself stuck, paralyzed by procrastination, seduced by comfort, and always waiting for the right moment to act, let me share with you a principle so powerful, so practical, that if applied with discipline, it can transform your results, reignite your drive, and force your dreams into motion. And that principle is this: you must create deadlines and accountability so real, so urgent, that motion becomes inevitable, because the truth is, the human mind, no matter how brilliant, tends to delay action when there's no pressure. It tends to dream without doing, to plan without progress, to hope without hustle, and the reason is simple. Without consequences, there is no urgency, and without urgency, ambition falls asleep. So you must wake it up by introducing pressure, structure, and real stakes into your life, because when something must be done by a certain time when you know someone is watching, when you feel the eyes of responsibility and the weight of expectation, your brain snaps into gear, your body starts to move, your energy rises, and suddenly the things you've been avoiding for weeks begin to get done in hours, because deadlines are a signal to your subconscious that time is not unlimited, that opportunities will not wait, and that dreams without action are nothing more than comfortable lies. And the secret is that most successful people aren't naturally more disciplined. They are just better at putting themselves in situations where discipline is not optional, where not acting brings discomfort, where delay leads to visible failure, and that's why they win, not because they're always motivated, but because they've designed a system where not moving is more painful than moving. And this is where accountability comes in, because when no one knows your goal, it's easy to quit, it's easy to delay, it's easy to lower your standards and tell yourself you'll get to it tomorrow. But when you've declared it publicly, when someone you respect is watching, when there's a promise hanging over your head, your pride kicks in, your drive ignites, and you do what needs to be done, not because you suddenly feel like it, but because you've made yourself answerable, and that is one of the greatest performance hacks of all time. Don't wait to feel inspired, create pressure, create deadlines, create accountability, and you'll find that action follows naturally, because humans rise when something is on the line. We move when standing still becomes uncomfortable, and the problem for most people is they never give themselves a reason to move. They say things like, "I'll do it when I'm ready," "I'll start next week," "I'll finish when I have more time." But they never do, not because they're lazy, but because they're unstructured, floating through their days without any anchor, any countdown, any compelling reason to act now. And the cure is as simple as it is effective. Put a date on it, write it down, make a commitment, tell someone you'll deliver, and feel the change as your mind shifts from someday to now, from maybe to must. And that shift, mental, emotional, physical, is what transforms intentions into action, and action into achievement, because nothing brings out your potential like a looming deadline and the eyes of accountability. And it doesn't have to be complex. Start with micro deadlines, daily deadlines, even hourly checkpoints that force you to act. Break your goals down and assign them dates, not vague ones like next month, but specific ones like by June 25th at 4 p.m. Because your mind respects specificity, it understands urgency when a clock is ticking, and pair that with someone who will check in, someone who won't let you off the hook, someone who wants to see you win but isn't afraid to call you out when you fall short, because the right accountability partner doesn't let you negotiate with your excuses. They remind you of your standards, your potential, your word, and that's what you need. Not more motivation, but more structure, more pressure, more non-negotiables in your environment. And this is the truth most people don't want to hear. Your dreams don't need more vision boards, they need more deadlines. Your ambition doesn't need more dreaming, it needs more doing. And doing happens when you've boxed yourself in with commitment, when you've burned the boats, when you've created the kind of structure where backing out would embarrass you, where missing the mark would disappoint someone who matters to you. And when you operate in that kind of environment, you produce, you execute, you move, even when you don't feel like it. And that is what separates the successful from the stuck. They move whether they feel like it or not, because they've engineered their life to demand motion. And you can do the same today, right now, by simply picking one goal, giving it a date, and telling someone you trust that you will deliver. And the moment you do that, you've turned your wish into a contract. You've turned your desire into a decision, and that decision is the birth of your momentum, because motion is addictive, progress is intoxicating, and once you feel the thrill of checking something off, of showing up when it was hard, of delivering on your word under pressure, you begin to build a new identity, one of reliability, one of focus, one of strength, and that identity drives even more action, which creates even more results. And that loop continues, because success is not a moment, it's a pattern, and that pattern begins with structure, with pressure, with accountability that forces you to rise, to stretch, reach, and that is how you outgrow laziness, not by trying to force yourself to be more disciplined in a vacuum, but by building external systems that leave no room for slacking, and this applies to every area of your life. Your fitness, your finances, your business, your relationships. Set deadlines. For improvement, find someone to report to, someone who won't coddle you, and treat your goals like appointments you can't miss, like promises you refuse to break, and over time, you'll no longer need as much external pressure because it will become internalized, and that is when you become unstoppable, when your default setting is to finish what you start, to meet every deadline you set, to show up without needing a reminder. And that future version of you starts with one powerful step. Take your biggest excuse, "I don't feel ready," and crush it with the force of a deadline. Take your biggest fear, "What if I fail?" and bury it under the weight of accountability, because if you're not willing to make it real, to declare it, to commit to it with time and witness, then you're not really serious about it. You're just playing with the idea, and life doesn't reward ideas. It rewards execution, and execution is born from urgency, and urgency is created through deadlines and accountability. So if you're ambitious but lazy, stop trying to fight your nature and instead outsmart it. Build systems where not acting hurts more than acting, where your pride, your promise, and your word are all on the line, and you will find yourself moving, producing, finishing, thriving. Not because you've magically changed, but because you've finally given yourself a reason to act, a structure to follow, and a standard to live by. And that, more than anything, is what transforms potential into power. 5. If you're ambitious but lazy, there's a hidden power within you that you're likely not tapping into, not because you don't want to, but because the engine of your desire is idling when it should be roaring. And that engine is the ability to visualize, to vividly and emotionally imagine the end result of your goals until it becomes so magnetic, so intoxicating, so irresistibly tempting, that the pain of staying still outweighs the effort of moving, because the truth is, we are not driven by logic alone. We are driven by the pictures we hold in our minds, the images that stir our hearts, and the emotional weight those pictures carry. And when your mental movie of the future is more exciting than your current comfort, something changes inside you. The excuses begin to fade, the fog of inaction clears, and your spirit rises up to move, to act, to do the thing you've been putting off. Not because you forced yourself, but because you were pulled by vision, compelled by a future that calls your name and feels more real than the couch you're stuck on or the distraction that's numbed your edge. And the problem for most people isn't a lack of ambition, it's a lack of clarity, of emotional connection to the dream they say they want, because a vague goal doesn't move you, a blurry future doesn't stir you, but a crystal, clear, emotionally charged vision that will light a fire inside you even when you feel low, even when you're tired, even when your old patterns try to chain you down again. And the secret is that visualization, when done right, is not just daydreaming. It is the rehearsal of destiny, the mental conditioning of greatness. It's your subconscious GPS recalibrating toward purpose, and the more you repeat it, the more the picture sticks, the more your body responds, the more your emotions align with action, and before you know it, you're no longer stuck because motion has become natural, even inevitable. And this is why the most powerful people in the world, leaders, performers, athletes, entrepreneurs, spend time visualizing not just what they want, but how it will feel to have it, what it will look like, what it will sound like, how it will smell, because the more senses you involve, the more real it becomes, and the more real it becomes, the more your brain can't ignore it, the more it starts plotting paths, noticing opportunities, and breaking down internal resistance without you even trying. And you can do the same, right now, right here, wherever you are. Close your eyes and build the picture of your victory. Imagine it so clearly that it makes you smile, makes your heart race, maybe even makes you cry, because when your dream is that vivid, that personal, the distractions around you lose their power, the laziness within you loses its grip, and your mind becomes a furnace of focused energy, feeding you drive even on the days you used to feel stuck. And it's not just about seeing the goal, it's about feeling it, tasting it, walking through it in your mind again and again until the thought of not having it is unbearable, until the image of your unfulfilled potential is more painful than the grind. Until the idea of settling feels like betrayal, and that's when you move, not because someone told you to, not because a deadline is looming, but because your soul cannot sit still when it's already touched the future in its imagination. And this is the kind of vision that bends your reality. Because once you've lived your future vividly enough in your mind, your present begins to conform, your choices align, your discipline sharpens, and you start to show up with the energy of someone who's already halfway there, and people notice, your environment responds, and the world begins to open doors because you're moving like someone who belongs on the other side of them. And this isn't magic, it's mental training, emotional engineering, a daily practice of walking mentally through the life you're building until the blueprint in your mind becomes the structure of your life. And yes, it takes repetition, it takes emotional engagement, it takes choosing to visualize not just when you're motivated, but especially when you're not, because that's when it matters most. That's when the picture becomes a lighthouse guiding you out of your fog. That's when it becomes more powerful than the old temptations, the easy escapes, the endless distractions, and the mistake people make is thinking they'll move once they feel ready. But readiness doesn't come before vision, it comes from it, and that vision must be cultivated daily, before the world wakes up, before you check your phone. Before doubt creeps in, carve out time to build your future in your mind with detail and emotion and certainty. See it in the morning, rehearse it at night, and carry it with you like a secret fire that keeps you warm when life turns cold. And the best part is, the more you visualize, the more aligned your behavior becomes. Your choices start to reflect the person in your vision, your habits evolve, your energy shifts, and even when you slip, you correct quickly because you've tasted what it means to live in purpose. And that taste won't let you settle anymore, it'll whisper in your ear. When you're tempted to slack, it'll pull you back when you wander, and it'll fuel you forward when your old self tries to resurface. And that's the beauty of this practice. It becomes your internal coach, your emotional compass, your private sanctuary of strength, and you'll begin to notice that things you used to call laziness were really just a lack of emotional connection to your goals, a lack of vivid vision, and now that you've replaced that with images that stir you, nothing will stop you from rising, and even when progress is slow, the vision remains strong because the mind doesn't forget what it sees deeply and emotionally, and over time, your present catches up to your imagination, and one day, you'll wake up in the life you once only saw in your mind, not because luck found you, but because you fed the fire every day with focused intention, and let that fire become stronger than your excuses, brighter than your distractions, and hotter than your comfort zone. And that's the shift. The moment you stop needing motivation because your vision is stronger than your resistance, and you no longer say, I should, but I must, no longer say, I hope, but I will. Because your future isn't some far-off fantasy, it's the emotional anchor that grounds your daily action, and every time you close your eyes and see it clearly, you're giving yourself the gift of forward motion, the power to override your lower impulses, and the courage to keep going, and that is the secret. If you want to move, if you want to break laziness, if you want to act even when it's hard, stop staring at your limitations and start obsessively focusing on the finish line until it's so emotionally loaded, so mentally detailed, so spiritually charged that you cannot go another day without chasing it, building it, stepping into it with everything you've got. Because that, my friend, is how dreamers become doers and how lazy ambition becomes relentless action.